good evening. Welcome to our yin live stream. So we're going to be doing some extra focus tonight on our hips and on our hamstrings. We've still got a couple of minutes to go, so if you want to just gather your props. If you have a yoga strap, that would be really helpful, or a scarf or a towel. All of those things are fine, just to give us a little extra arm length if it's hard to reach where we want to reach in any of these postures, or we just want a little bit of extra support. So have your strap handy. If you've got a bolster, have your bolster nearby. Don't worry if you don't have a bolster, you can just use ordinary pillows or special pillows. If you've got some yoga blocks, they might also be handy to have on hand. And in our yin practice, we don't really have a aesthetic goal. It's not really about making the pose look a certain way. It's more a level of sensation goal. And so that's why it can be really helpful to have some props nearby. So if something is feeling a little bit too intense and you need a little bit more cushioning and a little bit more support, you can use your props for that. But alternatively as well, if you wanted to feel a little bit more sensation, there will be some postures tonight where we can use our props to take us a little bit deeper into these particular shapes. Or if you're feeling, say, some discomfort in the lower back, not what we want, and not really an effective stretch for the legs, that's when we can use the props as well, just to rearrange ourselves so that we can feel more in our target area and make sure we're not loading up parts of the body that we don't really want to be putting any pressure on. So I'll give you a couple of moments to get your bits and pieces. If you already have everything that you need for this practice, you can start sitting or you can lie down. I quite often forget to mention things that I want to mention at the start of class, where I'm all chill and relaxed, so I'll mention them now. We have actually just put a new video course up on our website on gardenofyoga.com.au. It's a nurturing yoga and Pilates video course. So it's 5 videos. It's only $10 for the 5 videos, and you can stream them or you can download them. So good to watch if you don't want to be on Facebook or you don't want to be on Zoom. I've got a foam roller sequence, a yoga flow, a sequence for nurturing your knees, a peanut sequence, 2 balls in a sock, and a neck massage meditation sequence. So that's all on gardenofyoga.com.au in our Learn section. I want to let you all know as well that my free virtual Pilates class in collaboration with Darabin Leisure and Ran's free chair yoga class, also with Darabin Leisure, are happening tomorrow and Monday. So I'm sharing Pilates at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning here on the Garden of Yoga Facebook page, and Ran's sharing chair yoga on Monday. So it's a new term, but there's no gap between the terms. We're just flowing straight into it. So now that I've made my announcements and hopefully you've got your props, let's really take this time to settle in, to feel the ground beneath us, to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the ground beneath, so the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation here in Northcote. Could be different for you, Indigenous heritage or wherever you are. Honouring as well the wisdom traditions that have passed these amazing techniques of yoga, meditation down to us today. And honouring your own energy that you bring to the practice. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. As we move through our practice tonight, you might like to really cultivate a sense of self-care. I'll give different options as we go, and you can choose the one that feels the best for you. You can let me know in comments. I won't look at them during the class so I don't get distracted looking at my laptop, but I'll look at them after the class if you ever feel like you're needing different options to what I'm offering, because I definitely want to know that for the future. Whether you're sitting or you're lying down, you can continue to sit or continue to lie down. We go soles of the feet together and knees wide. Or if this one is not so comfy for your knees, you're welcome to have the legs out a little bit straighter. If you're lying back, we can go feet together, knees wide, lying back over a bolster, over a cushion. And actually, even with the seated version, bolster can be really nice underneath you. You might feel enough just with gravity, sinking the knees a little lower, or you might like to come forwards. Choosing that level of sensation that's feeling right for tonight. Remembering we don't want to feel anything that feels like a strain for the lower back, but it's okay if you feel a gentle stretch that runs along the back line of the body. Feeling a bit of an inner thigh stretch from here. For the seated pose especially, if you wanted to bring your feet a little bit further away from you, then that can just change the area of sensation. For me, when my feet come a little bit further out, I feel a bit more hamstrings. When my feet are a bit more closer in, I feel a bit more inner thighs. Settling into something that feels like a relaxing but productive amount of hip stretching. You might like to have a soft gaze or close your eyes to continue that process of bringing awareness inwards. A lot of our day is spent with our legs in parallel, whether we're walking, whether we're standing, or whether we're sitting. And so having a little bit of this inner thigh opening as we ease into our practice can be a way into some of those muscles that might have been held in that one shape all day. Also a way into our lymphatic system as well, opening up what's known as the dark spaces of the body in yoga, those places where sometimes we don't get as much expansion, as much circulation. Our lymphatic system relies on gravity and the movement of our muscles to circulate those fluids around, so kind of creating a bit more space in areas of the body where there might be a bit more compression through the day can be a good way to help our lymphatic system work. And this can also be a time to notice your breath as a way into your state of mind. So if it just feels confronting for you to focus on your breath, you're welcome to bring your awareness elsewhere. You could use this as a time for exploration. Often as we move through our day, even if we don't leave our house, our focus is outwards. We're noticing what's happening in the environment around us, noticing what's happening online, interacting with the other people who we might share our house with. As we move into our yoga practice, we consciously bring that focus inwards. And it's your practice, so you can choose how you direct your focus, inwards or outwards. You can always just feel into where your body meets the floor. You could use that sensation of the breath flowing in as a way to bring awareness into the body. You could use the release of the breath out if there's a bit of mental chatter going on or a bit of distraction. And just know as well that it's the nature of the mind to think, so the mind will continue to move. And sometimes it can be really powerful to explore into some of those places where our mind can go to in our yoga practice. This can be a quiet time to really explore those nuggets of wisdom that sometimes we find there. It can be useful to notice though when we've gone into a pattern of thought or a bit of chatter or a bit of distraction, and to just consciously bring our awareness back to the present moment, maybe back to the ground beneath us where it touches our bodies, back to our breath or back to the sensations in the body. I'm going to give you the next 4 or 5 breaths so that you can explore this process for yourself. And from here, easing your way to your rebounding, just ease back to lying on your back. That's a comfy one for you. Just settling back. Feel free to support underneath the knees. And if you're lying on your back doesn't feel good, you're welcome to choose another shape that works better for you. I want to be in a position where we feel reasonably comfortable and we can explore the after effects of the pose that we were just in. So something that feels kind of neutral in the body. Definitely a shape that requires the minimum of effort so that we can just notice how we're feeling without having to coordinate anything else. And just as I was mentioning at the start of the practice, that process of checking in is something that we'll continually do through our practice, and it can be even useful to notice whether it feels easy or challenging to drop back in, and that might change day by day, and it might change as you move through the practice. We're going to make our way into a one-legged forward bend from here. So this is another one where you might like to use a bolster, plant, or a pillow. I actually find a pillow is better for these for me, because if I'm up something too high, it just pulls on the back of my knee, and that's not so comfy for me. So I'll start by bending my right knee and having my left leg long. If it's not so good for your knee to be bent, you can just have that leg out to the side, absolutely fine. This is where you might like to use your strap, either helping you sit tall, or if you feel comfortable just softening forward, but we don't really want to pull ourselves forward in yin. We don't want to be feeling like we're using a whole lot of effort to get into these shapes. We want to set up the architecture of the shape and then just allow. So to be pretty passive here with our muscles unless we need that engagement for support. With that in mind, if you feel like it would be more relaxing for you to have a bolster to rest on, you're welcome to stack up your pillows or your blocks or a bolster. Set my timer for this one. And always, if you feel like staying longer, you're welcome to stay on a little bit more and know that you'll have a little bit of a shorter rebound. Or if you have reached your personal amount of time that you want to stay in each of these shapes, you're welcome to come out before me. That's totally fine. You can also adjust your props while you're here if you want to have more or less sensation. If you're used to a more yang yoga practice, we're often told to keep our spine really straight and to not let the back around in forward bends. And we don't want to pull ourselves into a loaded position with a flexed spine. But there are some benefits, as long as it feels good in your body, to having a rounded shape through your spine in our forward bending postures. Some of the densest, thickest connective tissues are along that back line of the body, and hanging out in a more rounded shape rather than working a lot of muscular engagement to keep the spine in like a stiff, lengthened shape can be a way to encourage a little bit more freedom of movement, a little bit more gliding and sliding between those layers of fascia. Feeling what feels useful in your body. I discovered yin after quite a few years of doing other styles, and for me, being in this rounded shape in my forward bending postures felt like I got into some really deep layers of muscle and connective tissue that I didn't even realize had been locked up. So explore for yourself, seeing what feels useful for you. Obviously, if you're working with an injury or you know that this is not a good shape for your body, then making sure that you stay safe and you stay care of yourself. And our necks especially can sometimes be pretty sensitive. So even if you wanted to just support with your hands or with your bolster and allow that rounded shape through the rest of your spine, but just give your neck a little bit of support so it's comfy for your neck, that's also a great option. Let's have a few more of these long, deep breaths here. And then from here, easing your way out, making your way to lying back in your rebound. And if you felt some of that deep stuff in the back line of the body, really take your time coming down, take it slow, because your spine might feel quite different than the last time we were here. Especially since this was an asymmetrical forward bending shape, so you might feel a little difference between the hips, which might continue up the spine. I'm even feeling difference between my shoulders, having done that on one side, not the other side. All interesting things to feel into and to check into in our rebound time. And then we'll make our way to our other side. Cushion if you need, strap if you need. As before, we could have this leg bent or long. If it felt like your back, a lot of strap to work with here. If it felt like your back was more comfortable, keeping that upright shape, you can absolutely go with that. I'm going to set my timer for my second side. And then from here, settle in. And with these asymmetrical postures, you might notice differences between the sides. So that is already something that we could explore to help the mind stay present. Exploring those differences in sensations between the first side and the second side. Especially since while our legs are doing different things, our spine is still in that flexion, in that forward bending shape. So some things might feel pretty different, but some things might feel like a continuation. And it can be really useful to explore where you're feeling the most sensation. So in this posture, it could be the back line of the leg, it could be through our hips, it could be the side of the lower back, it could be that whole back line of the body. Often I feel this one in between my shoulders. It could be your neck. And if it ever feels like the sensation has got too intense and you want to just ease out a little bit by using some more props or changing your position slightly or coming out of the pose entirely, being really gentle with yourself as you do that, take it slow. Sometimes though, it might feel like we actually want to go a little deeper into the pose as we stay there longer. And if, like me, you haven't chosen to lean on any props, then you'll just continue to settle down in space. But if you have used a cushion or a bolster at the start of the pose, you don't have to keep it there the whole time. You can just move it away if you feel like you do want to have that little bit more freedom and space to go a little lower down towards the ground. So from here, taking your time, easing your way back to your rebound. Might feel like you need to use a bit of help with your arms to move your legs, and that's okay. If it's your first yin practice tonight, I'll just let you know that if it feels a little bit vulnerable or a little bit fragile in your body after the postures, that's really normal and actually seen as a benefit. If you've changed the range of motion in your body, and especially in your connective tissues, your nervous system registers that and just sends a message to be really careful around that area because something feels new, something feels different. And so you do want to be really careful with yourself. You want to move slowly and you want to move gently, and it's not advised to go do some powerlifting or go do some sprints or anything after a yin practice when we've just been given our tissues this message to be nice and loose and relaxed. We don't want to make them like clench up right away. And as you move through your practice as well, if your body is telling you to do something different from what I'm suggesting, absolutely do what's right for you. That's the whole basis of this practice, like feeling into what your system needs and adapting the practice to suit you. That's a great thing to keep in mind with this next little sequence, because one variation is pretty strong and the other variation feels a lot more supportive. If you've been joining me the last couple of weeks, you'll know the dragon poses. I'm going to show you the lying down version first. Be kind to your knees with this one. If you've got sensitive knees, then the lying down version could be, I'll move a bit further forward so you can see me, could be the best version for you. So got a little bit of height underneath my hips, could be cushions, could be blocks, I've got a bolster. I'm going to lengthen out my right leg and start to draw my left knee in. So my target area, front of the right hip. If you've got a strap handy, you could take that strap around the foot so that knee's a bit more bent. For me, this is actually the best version with my knee bent. I see other people who love this version or even go with a straighter leg. I find once I do this, it's just all about my hamstrings and I don't get as satisfying hip flexor stretch. So that might be your option, but it's not one that I choose. So that's the lying down version. We can also do dragon in a kneeling position. I like a bit of extra comfort underneath my knee, so I'm going to use a pillow, and I can be up here with my hands on my knee or even hands on a chair. I can come down lower with my hands to the inside of my front foot. I could use as many blocks as I like underneath, or come down to my elbows from here. So with that sense of self-care in mind, choose the variation that feels right in your body tonight. I'm going to go for this one. I feel like this is what I need today. And the lying down version, a bit more pronounced for those right hip flexors. I'm still feeling them here, especially if I'm up a little bit, working to keep my balance. If I'm up a bit higher, that's a good point actually. I am working to keep my balance up here, so I'm not completely passive. If I come down lower, I feel more stable. I'm still getting the hip flexors, but I'm getting a bit more glutes on my left side, sometimes even hamstrings. And as I come down lower, you might even start to feel again that back line of the body and in between the shoulders. This could be a useful one to check back in with your state of mind, with your breath. If we're pushing too hard in this pose, it might start to take us more into that sympathetic nervous system, so into a little bit more of a stress or an activation response, away from the parasympathetic phase of the nervous system, a bit more of that rest and digest response. And even if we are feeling some sensations within the body, we want to be staying in that range where we can stay relaxed mentally. And sometimes checking in with the breath and just feeling if it's a smooth flow of breath can be a useful way to do that. Sometimes just checking in with the sense of, do I want to stay in this pose or do I want to get out of it, can be really useful. Because of course you know you can come out any time that you need, But you can also just readjust things so you actually feel like you're working at a level that you want to stay with. Something that feels productive, not something that feels stressful. Can be useful as well if you know that your tendon heads up your shoulders or your face when there's some strong stuff going on. Making sure that you're not wasting any of your energy kind of clenching up parts of the body that don't need to be working that hard right now. So this can be a how do I get out of this pose moment. Slowly is the answer. Taking your time, gradually easing that foot back. You can lie on your belly or you can lie on your back. Whatever feels right for you. If you were lying over the bolster and you like lying over the bolster, you could stay there with the bolster underneath your hips, because for some people this would be a relaxing place to stay. You could also just push that bolster down to your knees, and this can be a really nice one to stay with as well as you feel into those differences between the sides of the body. Feeling into the area that you felt in the pose, but also exploring out from there and seeing what else you notice. Sometimes when we're doing those hip flexor stretches, we feel a real difference with our breath and with our diaphragm because the other end of this muscle group attaches up near the diaphragm. And we'll take it to the other side. So if you're working on the bolster, you're drawing your other knee in with your hands or with your strap. So we had our right leg long last time, so we'll have our left knee long this time. If you had a pillow for underneath your knee, make sure you get that for the second side. Don't want to have a sore knee. You might like to be up in the high dragon or come down lower. This front leg can be on whatever angle that works for you, as long as it's comfy for your knee. And actually that is something that you can really readjust and play with if it's feeling like you've hit a bit of a brick wall in terms of where you're going with your hip. Changing the angle of the leg can help you settle into something that feels a bit more productive. And as before, if you wanted to work with a block, you could have a block, or you could improvise with something else like a block. I know that toilet rolls are in short supply these days, but some toilet rolls could be a good block alternative instead. And that can be one of those ways that you can regulate the intensity of how low you go or how stable you feel if you're staying higher up, because it feels a lot more stable to have some blocks to rest on than just to hover in space. This is, as with our other one leg at a time poses, a time where you might notice some real differences between the sides of the body. So that can be something that's interesting to explore with your mind. You can also use your breath as a way to feel into some more subtle layers of the sensations that you feel. Or even if you feel like there are areas that are harder to tune into, sometimes you can use a sense of sending your breath flowing to those particular places as another way to feel in. You might like to have that little check-in. How's the face? How's the shoulders? There might be other little places in your body that you might realize are currently working harder than they need to. It could be that moment as well when you realize your mind is working harder than it needs to right here. That's why I really emphasize that sense of tuning into the sensations in the body, because that's something I find really helpful as a way to keep my mind present, give it something to do, a little project. You might find as well, though, that you can actually go beyond that. And you can just be in this shape without having to consciously direct your awareness to any particular place. You can just settle into that soft, open awareness. Gradually easing our way out, taking your time. You could lie on your belly or you could lie on your back. Go slow, be gentle with yourself, especially if things are feeling a bit creaky. Be in a shape where your back is in its most comfortable position, so we have this time to tune into the after effects of the shape that we were just in. Noticing your spine, noticing your breath, noticing your legs. And so the next little sequence that I'm going to take you through, the poses themselves might look quite different, but the target area is the same. It's the side outside of the hip. So if you've got some really sensitive knees, or you find that the seated postures are not so great for your lower back, I would recommend banana pose. Where you're lying down, optional pillow underneath your head. Let's open up through the outside of the right hip by reaching the hands and the legs over towards the left. And feel free to take banana pose if you love banana pose. So what I do almost every week, so I'm giving some different options today, because for some people that whole side body lengthening doesn't get that outside of the hip place. So another way into that area is, if I'm thinking of outside of the right hip, taking my right leg over my left leg, and then from here I can fold forwards over the leg, or like, it doesn't have to be a straight ahead linear position. I could come to the side as well. And if you wanted to turn up that volume on that sensation a little bit more, for some reason I didn't mirror image. I will mirror image now. Right leg on top, yoga right leg. But I could take that underneath leg to the outside of the hip, and I could feel into this, either coming forwards or bringing my arms over to my mirror image right. So just as a recap, I could have right leg on top, left leg underneath, maybe stretching forward, maybe coming to the side. I could have that bottom leg long, and this is quite the calf stretch, so if that's what you feel like you want tonight, you will find that here. I'm finding it here. Or I could still think of targeting outside of the right hip by stretching my arms and my legs over towards the left. So choose your own adventure with that one. If the contraindications don't apply to you, you could give them all a quick little go and then go with the one that you like the best. I'm going to be taking this one tonight. And height underneath the hips is a great option for sitting up as well, if that feels more useful for you. We're settling in. One of the ways that these different postures vary from each other is how much of an impact gravity is going to have. If we're lying on the ground, we're fully supported. So banana pose, gravity is not going to have that much of an impact because we're already pretty much touching the floor all the way along the body. If we're doing the kind of posture where we're extending forwards in space, as we stay here longer, things might start to feel a bit more intense. So you could use your arms or you could use props to support. And if you feel like your body is already resting on your legs and there's nowhere else to go, that's where some of those sideways angles can be useful, because our bodies are not necessarily linear straight lines. All of our bones grow in a spiral shape and we have lots of curves, so you might find that finding a slightly different position, even if it feels like things aren't necessarily aligned and stacked up, but your own inner alignment is feeling better, can be a really helpful way to go with some of these shapes. That said, if you feel like one hip is lifting a lot off the ground and that's not feeling stable through your pelvis, then I would encourage you to sit on a cushion or to sit on a block so it feels like you've got that nice stable base underneath both sides of the pelvis, underneath your hips, if you've chosen a seated posture. And so from here, easing your way gradually out, finding your way to your rebound. Sometimes when doing seated postures, I don't feel like lying all the way down. It feels like a bit too far to go to the ground. So you could choose a neutral seated shape as well if that applies to you. If you're in banana pose, then you don't have too far to go. You're already on the floor. And if you did choose a seated shape and you wanted to take that journey down to the floor, you will be rewarded with that chance to feel your body in a different angle, in a different relationship to the floor, and just notice what might have changed, what might have evolved. So very normal to feel like one leg is longer than the other leg right now. That's what I'm feeling. Sometimes we'll notice a difference through the lower back. One side of my lower back feels like it's sinking a little lower to the ground than the other side. Just this time to check into your own experience. And if you chose banana last time, banana asana, we're thinking of opening up through the outside of the left hip. So you could just reach your arms and your legs over towards the right, making sure you've got a nice stable base beneath you. That might help you decide how far you go to the right. Otherwise, we're thinking of opening up through the outside of the left hip from sitting. And again, I'll mirror image. So I could take, as long as your other leg to the floor, taking your left leg across, and you could just stretch forward from here, or you can tuck that right leg underneath. You can sit tall, or you could stretch forward. You can come to the outside of the legs, feel like I might have just confused myself with the mirror imaging, and this is what I need to be doing. Just as long as it's the other leg to last time, that's what we want. It's a lot easier to keep track of when there's a room full of people that you can see rather than just a webcam. So this might be an opportunity to feel into your own body and just make sure it's your other leg to last time. Sorry if I was confusing on that. And from here, just breathe into it, settle into it, let the mind steady. Or continue that process of observing the movements of the mind, whether it's busy or steady. Because just as we don't have a physical goal with these shapes, it's not usually that productive to try and force the mind into a particular state. We can give it some guidance, some encouragement to come to rest. And so some of the ways you could do that in our yoga practice is maybe slowing down the breath, maybe bringing awareness to a particular point of focus, whether it's the inhale flowing into the nostrils and then the warmth of the exhale flowing out, or that gentle expansion through the rib cage, maybe down to the belly. We could choose the feeling of the ground beneath us, feeling into where the body meets the floor. And of course we could tune into the sensations within the body. And I know for me personally, I find it much easier to come into a meditative state within my yin practice than just to sit on my mat. And that continual process of coming back to present moment awareness when the mind starts to wander through the practice, as we also ease into some of the places of the body that might have been holding on, can set up a really good state for meditation. The movement of your thoughts is going to be part of your meditation, just as it's part of your yin practice. So, taking your time, easing your way out, gradually making your way back to your rebound. Feel free to stay lying down, rebounding. Have a little check-in with yourself when I mention the possibility of a really strong hip and inner thigh stretch. And just notice if there's a feeling of contraction, if that's not something that your body is feeling like tonight, or if there's a sense of, oh yeah, that sounds great. Because that might help you decide which shape to choose next. And full disclosure, one of these options is not my personal favourite, but I know it's a favourite of a lot of my regulars, so I do share it, and I think I'm going to go there tonight because I feel like I really need a deep stretch, and that is frog pose. So I would not choose this variation if you have sensitive knees, and I have pretty bony knees, so I like to use cushions underneath my knees, so I'm a bit more comfy in my frog pose. So I can have a cushion underneath each knee, And then this is the shape. I can be on my hands, or I can be on my elbows. I can come a little bit forwards or a little bit back with my hips. And if this looks like something that you want to hang out in for a few minutes, this could be a good option for you. If that's just not going to be a good option for your knees or not your idea of a good time, and you have a wall handy, you can absolutely do this pose with the help of the wall. I'll show you two versions because you can have totally straight legs. You could just tuck yourself in by the wall and either have legs long and then get that inner thigh stretch that way, or you could work with your knees bent and it's a little bit of a different sensation. Breathing into that. And if you don't have a wall and you don't want to do the other pose, we did this one earlier in class. So you could choose the seated version or the lying down version, and if you like this, but you want a bit more intensity and you have a bolster, you could just use the light weight of the bolster resting on the legs. If you actually want less intensity or a bit more support, you could pop your cushions underneath, or your blocks or your toilet rolls, whatever you've got handy. So they were the options. Lying down, maybe with support under the legs, maybe with a little gentle weight on top of the knees. At the wall, coming close, sitting sideways, and then sweeping the legs around, taking them out wide, maybe bending the knees. Or working that frog pose. It's not my favourite, but once I've got my cushions, I'm okay. As you're here, you might like to ease your body a little bit forwards or a little bit back in space as a way of easing in and out of where you feel the most sensation. Knowing you have full permission to ease in and out of the variation you've chosen, to add more or less support. And it can be an interesting process to observe for yourself how your body responds to a more intense sensation, whether that can be a useful tool to help to focus the mind, to bring your awareness into being present, or something that feels more nurturing, more supported, more relaxed, if that helps your mind come to a steady place. And sometimes it will change depending on the night, so we want to kind of keep that compassionate practice of exploration open rather than making rules for ourselves. Sometimes it might change depending on whether you're quite tired coming to your practice or whether you're feeling more energized. I said that I don't usually love this pose, that I feel like I've spent lots of time just sitting with my legs together, and I felt like I have some muscles here that you could use a bit of a stretch. I actually just remembered another option which can be really nice. If you've got your bolster closer than mine is, you can pop your bolster underneath your body, and then it means there's a little bit less weight pressing down into the legs, so you can be in a really similar position but have a bit more of your weight evenly distributed, so it might not feel as strong. From here, easing your way out gradually. So if you've been working the frog, you might just like to flop forwards. If you've been at the wall, that could be a good time to use your arms to gently help your legs ease their way back to center. And if you've been lying on your back again, you could use your arms to gently help your legs come back together. Have a little check-in in your rebound. Does this feel like maximum comfort right now? Or do you want some other layers of warmth and coziness, or maybe a pillow for underneath your head or underneath your knees? If there is anything that could enhance your relaxation experience, now is the time to go and get it. I'm going to have a little drink. And then from here, we're settling in. So we were working that feeling of how much intensity we want to feel physically in our practice. We want to go right to the comfortable end of the spectrum for this final pose. We want to be in a position where we feel supported, where we feel at ease. And it may not be possible for all of us to be completely comfortable in this moment, but if there was anything that we could do to get a little bit more comfortable, now is the time to make that little adjustment. You might like to keep a soft gaze or let the eyes rest closed. Feeling in to the ground beneath you. Feeling your body rest. Noticing your breath as it flows in and out. And just explore if it's possible to pay attention to the breath without trying to change it. And sometimes as soon as we bring our awareness to the breath, it naturally lengthens and deepens all on its own. You might even like to have a little exploration of if it's currently possible to stay present and to stay aware from the very start of the inhale through that full expansion of the breath in. Maybe there's a little moment of pause. And then the whole of the breath flowing out again. If that's a useful one for you, you could keep that focus going. Coming back to the breath if you notice that your mind wanders off. You might like to notice your connection to the floor beneath you. Sometimes it feels like on the inhale we get a little bit lighter, like we lift off the ground a tiny bit. And then on the exhale, like we get a little bit more surface area with the ground as we really settle in. And with your mind, you might like to take a little tour to all the places that touch the ground beneath, feeling into the heels, feeling into the calves, feeling into the thighs, feeling into the buttocks, feeling into the back of the rib cage, back of the shoulders, back of the arms and back of the head. And with your next breath out, checking in with those places where the body meets the ground. And just exploring if it's possible to give a little bit more of your weight down to the ground to settle in even more. to tune in to that expansive quality of the inhale, that feeling of the lungs expanding with the breath, the rib cage and belly maybe gently expanding with that, and the release of the exhale flowing out. I even like to explore a quality of feeling more spacious, lighter, as the inhale flows in. And letting that whole breath slowly flow away on each exhale. You might even like to reconnect to that grounding of the breath out, that expansive, spacious quality of the inhale, and that feeling of resting down, being supported with the exhale. I'll give you a few moments now so you can just feel into your breath if that feels like a relaxing option for you. Take a little tour. Bring awareness to the toes, feeling into the toes, feeling into soles of the feet, tops of the feet and heels, feeling into ankles, calves, shins, knees, feeling into the thighs, feeling into hips and buttocks, feeling into the belly, feeling into the lower back, feeling into the chest, feeling into the upper back, feeling into the shoulders, feeling into upper arms, feeling into elbows, forearms, wrists, feeling down the palms of the hands, fingers, thumbs, feeling into the neck, to the throat, to the jaw, upper teeth and lower teeth, the tongue maybe resting behind the teeth, feeling into the mouth, into the little muscles around the mouth, feeling into the cheeks, into little muscles around the eyes, into the eyes themselves, gaze turning inwards, feeling into the forehead, feeling into the scalp. You might like to take an inhale that feels like it radiates through your entire body, and then each breath out like a wave of relaxation washing over you. I like to have a little moment, just check in, see how you're feeling after the practice that you've done tonight. Noticing as well, state of mind, flow of your breath, connection between mind, body, breath. Give your fingers and toes a little wiggle, gradually reawakening. You might like to go for a bit more of a stretch. Taking a little side to side stretch from here. Maybe stretching along with both arms together. And so if you want to stay lying down, it's totally fine. You can stay lying down, you're at home. If you do feel like coming up to sit as a way just to close off our practice tonight, I'll meet you there. And taking this time again to honour the traditional owners and custodians, the ground beneath us. So here in Northit, Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, honouring as well the wisdom traditions that have passed these amazing techniques of yoga, meditation down to us today. Honouring your own energy that you brought to your practice tonight. I wish you namaste and thank you so much for joining me. Thanking you all. Make sure you thank yourself as well. So as I mentioned at the start of the class tonight, the Get Active in Darabin program is continuing online. So I'm teaching Pilates at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning here on the Garden of Yoga Facebook page in my home studio, and Ran sharing chair yoga at 12 o'clock on Monday. And both these practices are designed to be really accessible. I used to teach Pilates in the park and a lot of retired people came, so I definitely have options for older people in there as well, different body sizes, different needs. So I try and make the practice as welcoming and accessible for whoever wants to join. So hopefully there will be great options in there for you if you do decide to join us. Same as our Nurturing Yoga and Pilates video course that we just released. There are lots of options in there and a real focus on nurturing and self-care. And unlike a live stream where it can be a little bit grainy and I can maybe be a bit far away to see some of the details, we kind of have edited this video so that it's easier to see what's happening. There's lots of angles and yeah, it's just a little bit of a different level of production. Lots of love went into that video, so I hope that you love practicing it with us, and you can find all of our videos on gardenofyoga.com.au/learn. I've also started to put these yin practices on my YouTube, which you can also find in the Learn section, because I know that not everyone wants to be on Facebook, and that is fair enough. So if you wanted to have a look on YouTube instead, that you'd find the past weeks there, and feel free to tell your friends. I'm really grateful that you've all joined me on Facebook tonight. Thank you so much, everyone. It's just a highlight of my Thursday reading the comments after this class, so let me know if you enjoyed the practice. Let me know if you were watching. Let me know if you've got any questions or any feedback or anything that you want to work on in future weeks, because I'd love to bring that into our practice. I think that was everything I was meant to say tonight, so I will leave you there. After yin self-care, drink lots of water, be really nurturing with yourself, have a lovely meal, maybe a nice hot shower or even a bath, and then have a nice restful evening. You look like you want to say something, Ran. Nope. Thank you so much, everyone.